Okay, so this is a sample of a screencast-o-matic that I'm doing for a paper, for a presentation from the paper that we created in class, the sample that I've been doing, the sample topic. It basically took all of that information and just translated it here. So a couple things to note. The first one is that I'm doing this on a laptop, which I think is going to give us a better sound quality. You can try it on a desktop. I had a desktop that did have a built-in microphone, but it was really hard to hear. And then another desktop that I tried, there was no way to actually record. So you have to make sure that those little, when you launch the program, that those little green lines are kind of lighting up. It'll warn you about that, but make sure that you're actually recording something. Another warning is that I am recording this. I've been doing a lot of research about it, but this was the day that I could record, and we're having work done where I live. So if you're hearing lots of scary haunted house noises in the background, that's my bad. You guys should do as I say, not as I do. I want you guys to plan this a little bit ahead, and you may also need to do a couple takes. I'm realizing that this is a program where you don't have a lot of editing leeway, so you might have to practice a couple times before you actually record, and set yourself up for success with a better situation than I did. So you can see over here that I've got the title on one side. This is the same title I used on the sample paper, and over here I've got my name, and you guys will include your name, not my name. The first slide that I have is a table of contents slide, and it breaks down all the slides I'm about to cover. Over here, instead of just calling it introduction, I gave it a title, what is diabetes? The first bullet point I have is my hook, and I would take that straight from my paper. This is my interesting hook to get people interested. Up here, because it is a statistic, I'm making sure that I include my APA in-text citation. Down here, I have a definition of what diabetes is because I need to include a little bit of relevant information, a little background so that my readers understand what's going on. Down here, this is my thesis statement. Below that, I have a figure that I found from the CDC, and you'll notice that I have included the table, and I've also included down here a really important aspect, which is an in-text citation for the image. Images need to be cited as well. That doesn't mean you should just avoid including images. You're going to want images to add visual interest to your presentation. So since it's the first picture, I just called it figure 1. There's a little description of the picture, and then below that, I've got the in-text citation. This is the author, and this is the year that the article was published, where this table came from. Here, I'm going to present all my support for my sources. If I include anything that comes from a source, I'm going to have my APA in-text citations. And again, these will be the same that are in your paper. This is the support for the diabetes as a disability, which if you guys looked at the sample paper I broke down for you, that's my first big subheading. So that's kind of the format we're going to follow. We're going to follow our paper and translate it into this oral presentation. So the next, diabetics and disability benefit eligibility, that was my next subheading if you guys were looking at the sample paper. And my third subheading was accommodations for diabetes. Oh, and this is something else you guys should do. Make sure that your PowerPoint looks the way you want it to. I'm actually switching between platforms, so I made this on a Word document, but I'm using a laptop that has Open Office. So if you're doing something like that, make sure that the PowerPoint formatting is correct because it looks like accommodations looks all wonky. And you want it to look as good as possible. So when you guys look at this sample, which I'll post online, it's not going to look like this. But if you are in a situation where you made it in Word and then you realize that you get better audio on a laptop, if you're using a different program, make sure that it opens and it looks the way that you want. So learn from my mistakes. This is where I will present all my support from my third subheading, where I'm going to talk about accommodations for diabetes. Over here, I have another picture so you guys can see. And then underneath, I have a description, photograph of diabetic emergency kit, and then in period D period. And this is an image that I just found online, and there was no author to the image. Even though there was an author to the article, this was an image inside of an article. That's not the same. So when you're looking for the name of the person who created the image, look underneath it. A lot of times it will be mentioned, if you're looking in a newspaper, there will be a photo credit underneath. If you can't find that photo credit underneath, leave it blank. The conclusion, I'm going to wrap up my presentation with a summation of my findings or a takeaway thought for my readers. Again, you don't want this to be too overpoweringly argumentative because we're not starting that unit quite yet. We're going to wrap the informative unit. So the takeaway message should be something like, here, we need to think about this more. This is why this is important. This is the impact. But you don't really want to be arguing anything quite yet. The last slide is going to be your references slide, and you can see that I've got a couple different things here. I cited both of these sources in text, and I also cited the table from this CDC source, and this source, the Diabetic Living Online, this is a reference that's entirely from my my picture that I had in that third subheading slide, the picture of the diabetic emergency kit. I don't have any information from this source, but I'm including it because I took a picture. So the way that I formatted this particular one is I actually just went to citation machine. And if you guys look, you can see over here, you can choose web image and you can fill out information so that you can get a reference citation. This is how you get a reference citation for the end for the references for your images. So if there is an artist or an author, you would put that information in there. If there's not, you would leave it blank. We're not really in an art history class, so you're pretty much always going to choose not a work of art. You're almost always going to choose an image found on the web. If there is a date listed, awesome, but if you don't see a date directly under the photograph, just leave this blank because the year that the article was published or edited is not the same as when the image was. So a lot of times you're just going to be leaving this blank. Here, you are probably not going to be dealing with things that have formal titles, so we're probably going to go for this option, and you would type in a description like photograph with a quick, if you find a picture of a cat, I don't know why you would be having a picture of a cat in these informal papers, but let's say you did, you would say photograph of cat. And then down here, you would put the URL where you found the image. So make sure that if you find it from Google and you just kind of copy the image from Google, that you're visiting the original page to get the URL. Don't put in that long one that's like Google find images. It's going to be way too long and unwieldy. And then you would just add the information and it'll pop up over here under view citations and you can copy and paste it into your references page. My recommendation would be to do that all at the same time because it will, to do all of your potential references at the same time for all the images you use, because it'll tell you how to arrange it. So you'll see that it did it for me alphabetically. Up here I have brackets. So because of the brackets, this is actually going to end up, there is no author, there is no title. So it's going to end up here at the top of the reference page because it's a piece of punctuation. And then it goes in alphabetical order as always. So everything in the reference page, you're going to need to include the references that you cite. If you bring over any sources and use in-text citations, you're going to need those references here, but you're also going to need those references for your images. And that's pretty much everything. So this is an example of how to use Screencast-o-matic. This presentation is longer than yours will be. Yours only have to be 3 to 5 minutes, but I had a lot to explain. So hopefully this helps.